Oh, look at that. Continue. Yes. Yeah, we're recording it for a couple of reasons. One is that if you do miss one of the modules, you can catch up. And the second is that even if you were at the module and there was something said or a topic that you wanted to go back and just rehear and rewatch, you can go back. And the next one here is that we do have some road crash scenes in this course. They're not graphic. You don't see the injured parties, but I do just warn if that stuff could be confronting, just prepare yourself for that. Nothing too major in that. All right, so you can see Kathy on your screen there, and Kathy's photo. And Kathy's contact details are there. And the reason we give you Kathy's contact details in many, many spots is because Kathy is your go-to person for any issues associated with the technology, Moodle, the assignments, anything like that. But I'm your go-to person if it's technical content. So we've split it up that way. And if you can't make a session, just let Kathy know. We sort of track who's at the sessions and the like, and I will explain your ability to miss a session if need be shortly. Now, Kathy, how do you like to play this with the chat and the like?
Yes, so the chat is probably the main functionality to use to talk to us or to each other. So if you want to write a question or make a comment that you just want to go to Ken and myself, that is, you select all panelists. If you want to share something with the whole group, you would select all panelists and attendees, and that means everyone in the group can see your comment or question that you've written there. So that's that side of things. If you would like to ask a question verbally, what you can do is raise your hand and I can unmute you, and then you'll be able to ask that question verbally. And Ken, you might call on some people throughout the series to share some of their experiences. Sometimes chat can be a bit temperamental, so that's where Q&A comes into it. And somebody is already telling us that they don't have the chat option, and that's quite unique to New South Wales, Transport for New South Wales, just as an FYI. So Q&A is your friend in that case, and I can see that's come through, Christian. So I will monitor all the different platforms, and if some of these break down, then you can always email me because I've always got that on the side as well. Yes, and you are all muted, so that means we can't hear any dogs barking or small children or anything else that's going on in the background on your end. If you do ask to be unmuted, it means that we will hear all of that, of course.
We have no ability to have your camera on at any point, so you can happily do this course in your pajamas and it all will be fine. But yes, and it takes us to give you the ability to unmute yourself. So we can't even directly unmute you either. So this is the webinar function of Zoom. And we do that so we don't get all that dog barking in the background and people shouting at their kids or their kids shouting at them and all of that stuff that happens if you just sort of let it free. So we control it a little bit. But the chat function and the Q&A are great. And certainly a Transport for New South Wales. They don't like chitter chatter up there in New South Wales, do they? So only Q&A for you, but we can use them both.
Yeah. I think that's about it. If you do have any internet issues and you're perhaps it's not loading very quickly or it's a little bit glitchy or something like that, then your best bet is to really shut down and jump back in again, and that usually fixes kind of 99% of the problems. We do have the PDF slides are on your USB that you received in your pack and also in Moodle as well. So yeah, there's lots of different places you can get that.
And if you haven't received your pack yet, don't worry. There's nothing in there that's vital at this stage or at all, really. Everything's duplicated in Moodle. So we've got sort of 3 backups for you, or 2 backups. So we've got live session, you've got everything on a memory stick, you've got everything in Moodle, You've got some dial-in phone numbers, so lots of options. And if worst comes to worst, you can just watch the recording and catch up that way and do the assignments and quizzes. So lots of options for you. But there's Kathy's details, and make sure you utilize those if you like. Right, back to this. Let's keep moving forward. Oh, that's me. That is me with no moustache. I've been growing my COVID moustache for the last 6 months. I'm the principal engineer at Safe System Solutions. I work with Kathy, and Kathy is the training manager at Safe System Solutions. I've put my LinkedIn QR code there, which everybody in the world now knows how to use a QR code, so I don't need to explain that. But the reason I do that is that I think the road safety conversation is just ongoing. And it's going to always be ongoing. And I utilize the LinkedIn platform as a good way to put out information. We do as a company. Other companies put out some really great stuff. And so we just like to have continual learning, and that's one of the good platforms. But as Kathy said, if there's any technical content, any technical questions associated with safe system assessments, get in contact with me. My contact details are there, and it'll be good to chat about that. I'll leave the QR code down there for a while, so if you want to connect. And what's this Moodle thing you speak of, Kathy?
Yes, it's our learning management system. So it's where again, a copy of everything is stored. Ken, you'll probably talk about lots of different things along the way, and you'll go, oh, hey, why don't you pop that in Moodle for everyone, Kathy, and I'll go find those. So that's where basically all your resources are. There will be a short quiz after every one of these webinars, about a 10-question multiple choice type quiz scenario. So you'll need to jump in and do those. And there'll also be 2 assignments throughout this program, one being your safe system assessment report that you'll do, but we'll talk about that in session 4. And then another one, a short practice type one you'll do at the end of module 2, which is this Friday. So those you'll have access to in Moodle, and you'll submit them back through Moodle. And Ken, you'll be marking those and giving people feedback and everything like that. You will have received an email from Safe System Solutions that may or may not have gone to your junk. So that's the best place to start at this stage. And that will have your login details to jump into this side of things here. But again, if you're having any trouble with any of that side of things, get in touch with me there.
Now, there's a few things that we do to try to ensure you're engaging in the content of this course. Now, because I know it's tempting to do the emails and do your roundabout design work on the side and have us, playing on the side. A couple of things we do here. One of them is Wally the Wombat. You can see Wally the Wombat here. He's a warning sign. A Wally is going to appear randomly throughout each module, just somewhere on a slide. And you've got to count the number of Wallies that appear, and that will be one quiz question. And you are marked on these quizzes at the end of the session. So you have to keep an eye out for Wallies. So get a little scrap of paper or use the thing provided and keep count of Wallies as we go. Now, this is not included as a Wally. That's just a demonstration Wally. Exactly, so you know what Wally looks like. Could be smaller, could be bigger. The other things you're going to need to do in order to successfully complete this course is to attend a minimum of 4 out of the 5 live webinars, as you're doing right now, unless you're watching the recording, I suppose. So the one you miss, if you miss one, you have to view it and then complete the quiz about that one. So we know that life is busy at the moment, and you may just have unavoidable things at one of the times. Now, if something, if a second one came up and you unavoidably couldn't miss for the like, talk to Kathy, have that conversation with Kathy, get in contact. We need you to satisfactorily complete all the tasks. So we're giving you quite a few tasks. And then we have quite a high benchmark on this course for the pass, and it's 80%. So you need to get 80% on all the quizzes and the assignments in order to pass this course. Now, Don't get too concerned about that though, because you have 3 attempts at everything. And our aim here is to ensure that you are up to that benchmark in competency. And so we will provide you one-on-one coaching if you'd like. We can have one-on-one Zoom calls, phone conversations, work through any of the issues. So we're here to ensure that you get there. So what I suggest is that you have a go at it, and then if you discover you've really not got close to that mark, that's when we can have that conversation, and we can organise a catch-up. My aim is to ensure that everybody gets above that 80% pass mark, because you are all competent safe system assessors by the end of this. And if not, it's a fail for me. So I will show this just for some context, because a lot of people want to know this from the get-go, and I will probably repeat this in a module later. A lot of people have this confusion about safe system assessments and road safety audits. Okay? Road safety audit is an independent assessment of a transport project or a road project for safety issues. There's also design reviews, so somebody looking at the technical elements of a design, checking calculations, ensuring that drainage is correctly accounted for, and those sorts of things. A safe system assessment is this category which covers a lot of what's in road safety auditing, a bit of design review style stuff, but a whole lot of stuff out here that's different. It's its own stuff, and it's either the process is different, excuse me, the reporting is different, or the way you look at a project is different. So it's its own entity. Then there's a completely other thing. We call it safety and design in a lot of areas. That's associated with, can it be constructed safely? Can it be decommissioned safely? Can people maintain it safely? Whatever it is that's being constructed. And then a lot of jurisdictions have this other thing called DDA, or Disability Discrimination Act audits or checks or the like. And that's can everybody of every ability use the facility being constructed? So people in wheelchairs or people with vision impairment. So you've got all these different sort of entities, which are all really independent checks of a design or a road project. So I just wanted to give that context for now. I'll come back to all of that. But before I jump into some real content, let's just see if anybody has any questions about the management, the logistics of the course, what your requirements are. Any questions at this stage?
Not at this stage, Ken, but it is a good point. You can type your questions in as we go. You don't have to wait. There will be little breaks along the way for Ken to get to those questions, but please feel free to type them in as we go. And yeah, but there doesn't seem to be anything at the minute. So I think we're good to get stuck into it.
Awesome. Now, I should say that I do love going off on a tangent. So if there is any specific topics you'd like to talk about or the like, please pop them into the chat. Kathy will probably tell me to hurry up and get back on track. But this first module is like this overarching philosophical discussion about road safety, what we're trying to achieve, how we've done things in the past and how we're planning to try to do them in the future. So it's a real sort of, as I say, philosophical topic, but it's important to understand this philosophy of the safe system and how we go about operating the transport network in order to be able to do safe system assessments, to be able to look at projects critically, to be able to provide recommendations that are aligned with safe system principles. So this module, what we're trying to get out of it is for you to have a good understanding and be able to list the principles and elements or pillars of the safe system, determine kinetic energy thresholds of different crash types, explain the difference between traditional approaches to road safety and the safe system approach, to cite some different approaches to behavioural change initiatives, vehicle safety interventions, and give reasons why speed is a critical element of the safe system. So quite a bit to cover, and I'm going to move through some of it quite quickly. Now, I'm going to be nice here. Your Wally count is 1. 1 Wally. No more help for the rest of the course. So let's keep ticking on. Okay. So there are a huge amount of road safety strategies, road safety plans, road safety commitments from states around Australia, from local governments around Australia, from New Zealand nationally, from local governments in New Zealand. You know, everybody's coming out with this is how we're going to approach road safety. A lot of people are talking about zero, vision zero to word zero, and how things are going to happen. And we're going to get ourselves to zero. Every one of them, it's been a long time since I've seen one that hasn't, is talking about the safe system as the philosophy under which they're going to operate. So towards zero and the safe system, or vision zero and the safe system, are intertwined. They're very much the same entity, and one's more at a vision statement level, and the safe system's got a bit more meat on the bones. And I intend, hopefully, to pass on information to you about how to operationalize this philosophy of the safe system. But we're seeing New South Wales committed, Tassie's committed, Victoria's committed, Queensland's very, very committed in terms of a specific policy that says we will do safe system assessments on everything. Queensland's all in. Victoria's got some policies. New South Wales is sort of very encouraging of the safe system assessment process and doing it along a lot of projects. Nothing formally committed. South Australia is committed, and New Zealand's got it in their road safety strategy as well. So lots of commitment, lots of excitement. The thing is, though, that I think a lot of this is written in a way that it's so hard for a minister or a chief executive to not sign up to this stuff. These wonderful statements, the health and safety of our community is paramount, and we're all about protecting people, and humans are making mistakes, and we're going to protect everybody and the like, and it's all signed off. The real challenge comes when it gets to our level of actually what do we do on the ground? What decisions do we make, and how do we make these decisions based on this safe system approach, these high-level sort of fluffy statements, and now we've got to make them something concrete. So that's what a safe system assessment's all about, helping that process. But the safe system as this philosophy, it was committed in Australia, at a point in history. One thing I didn't mention at the start here is during this course, we like to give out prizes. And you would have seen Kathy there. Kathy's in the prize pit. So her background was the prize pit. And how are we going to get you prize? Oh, there's Kathy. The prize pit just popped up. Now, I think you have to say something, Kathy, to be elevated, because everyone's just looking at me.
Oh, sorry. Righto. Look. There's a prize I got out of the prize pit. I think it's a pair of socks. Socks
with crayfish on them.
Yes.
Fantastic. So there you go. An example of a prize you could win. If you are the first to correctly answer questions that I ask in the chat or the Q&A. Kathy will monitor those. And I have other little exercises and things for prizes to be given out. So I will ask a question first here, so you'll be the first person to potentially win a prize. In what year did Australia, and sorry to the New Zealanders, it's a bit harder for you, what year did Australia, the federal government, first commit formally to the safe system approach? And they're actually committing to this diagram here. So pop in some guesses on dates. You can just go nuts. Yeah, guess your dates, and no points lost if you're wrong. It's just the first one to get it. We're seeing some guesses coming in. Nobody's quite got it right. We're seeing, people are bouncing around. Oh, lots of good guess. Well, gee, we've got quite a variety here, don't we? From 2019 all the way to 1950, and it is somewhere between that. I will give you that. Nobody's quite got it. I don't know, Kathy, it might be one of who is closest.
I think I'm going to give it to Sarah. Oh, no, Gavin just got in.
Gavin got it. Correct year, 2004.
But I'll give the bonus prize to Sarah too, because she was closest before that.
Everybody's getting a prize.
Oh, no, I'm not doing like Oprah. Settle down.
You get socks. You get socks. So 2004. Wow, that is a long time ago that we committed to this thing called the safe system. So it's not new, but I'll tell you what, the ability to actually operationalize this philosophy is taking a long time. But anyway, let me take you back to 2004 and some of the debate that was happening. So I was working in a road authority at the time in the road safety department of Vic Roads, and we were sort of in there in this debate about the operationalization of, the philosophy of the safe system, which had come from Scandinavian countries, and we're saying, well, how are we going to shape this for Australia and for Victoria as well? And anyway, we came up with this diagram. Well, it started as this diagram, but you'll have a look at a few things. Now, don't worry if you can't read it, I'll explain to you. At the center here, we've got human tolerance to physical force. How much force can humans take before they break, right? This is not this is just a physics thing, a biomechanics thing, really. Now, how much force before humans get hurt? And then around this, we have these elements, these pillars, people call them often, but I call them elements. We have safer roads and roadsides, safer speeds, safer vehicles. And that was it. Like, that was the safe system. There was none of this stuff around the outside of it. That was it. And people were like, well, hang on a second. What about like humans being better drivers, better walkers, better riders? Surely we can't have a system without that. And there was one camp saying that, no, we've got to put education in there. We've got to put enforcement. We've got to put better humans, And there was this other camp of people saying, no, humans are going to make mistakes. Humans are fallible. They're going to, fail often in their journeys. And we need to create a system that is impenetrable to these mistakes. And we can do that with the speeds and the vehicles and the roads and the roadside, so that it doesn't matter if the humans are failing. Right? So you had these two camps like bashing heads a bit. And what ended up happening was that they added in this little statement: alert and compliant road users, sort of overarching that. Now, at the time, I felt that that's a bit of a failure. And it's a failure in the sense that it gives people this really easy get out of feeling bad clause and say, well, they were, they fell asleep at the wheel, so that they should be in control of the vehicle. Or, well, they were, they walked out onto the road and they shouldn't have. It's obviously they didn't have right of way. And, what can we do about it as system designers? So that's why I felt it was a real failure back then. Now, that being said, I think the other extreme there that I was talking about, where humans play, it doesn't matter what humans do, we're going to create this system to protect. I think that's probably a bit extreme as to where we are at the moment. So somewhere in between would have probably been better. And then there was lots of other sort of things that got added as feeders into the system. Well, that wasn't a feeder, that's the output, safe travel. But anyway, the safe system sort of evolved from that, and we saw lots of diagrams popping out. We saw this kind of one, which was used out in the West and in New Zealand for quite a while. We saw this sort of stuff out of New South Wales, sort of simplifying things, altering things. This is the one that I'll talk to predominantly. But they're all essentially the same. They're just pretty much always a circle, and they've got a few things. Anyway, here we still have human bodies are vulnerable, human tolerance to physical force, this biomechanics. And we're going to delve a lot into that, because if I jump forward to what you do in a safe system assessment, one of the things you analyze is how bad a crash is going to be based on biomechanical tolerances. We'll get back to that. Down here, we have this other one, where this is the acknowledgement that people are going to make mistakes. Humans make mistakes all the time, all right? I've made many mistakes already this morning, as I'm sure you have. And, luckily none of them have led to death or serious injury that I'm aware of. Very, small little errors here and there. And humans continue to learn. You make errors, you learn from them, and that's part of it. We've also got some real sort of DNA in us for different behaviours, and different people have different sort of behavioural nuances, which are very hard to change often. They can change. We can, alter humans, but it's a really hard, tough process. I mean, genetically engineering humans, now we're talking, we can get some significant changes quite quickly. People aren't so happy with that. People recognize the value of diversity and these, these differences in humans. But we do, as a fundamental aspect of the safe system, say that we expect humans to make mistakes. And when you expect humans to make mistakes, you start designing very differently, because we've come from a position where we've designed for people not to make mistakes. Now, I will explore that in a lot more detail as we go. And this one here is this thing called a shared responsibility. The shared responsibility as a principle says that, the road users, be it pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, cars, heavy vehicle drivers, everybody has a responsibility to try to operate as safely as possible. But the system designs, the people managing the system, and that could be the roads, it could be the licensing, it could be the vehicles, it could be anything like that. We have a responsibility. And if you look at the way that a lot of the Scandinavian countries, a lot of the European countries operate their system and the philosophy of their system, they say that we have ultimate responsibility as system designers. So anytime there's a failure of our system, a death, a serious injury occurs, regardless of what activity was undertaken by the individuals, that's a system failure. The system didn't step in to rectify this, either stop the crash happening in the first place or minimize the severity of that crash. Something went wrong. Why did our system not step in? We haven't quite got to saying that this is ultimate responsibility, not in any jurisdiction in Australia or New Zealand. And in fact, a lot of our legislation is set up to sort of counter that. So where we want to be, and our legislation can kind of hold us back, because it's got these little things in there often that say things like, the road user is responsible for, ensuring their safety. Being in control of the vehicle is a classic. So if you crash, you weren't in control of the vehicle. Or, you got a stop sign and they didn't stop at the stop sign and they went through it and they were killed. Or they killed somebody else. That's their fault. And the police are always out there looking for who they can attribute blame to. Now, the safe system is really countering all of that, right? Now, unless they intentionally were trying to seriously injure or kill people, that's a different sort of terrorism style story. But if that was not their intention, why are we providing a system where that can happen? So the safe system is saying we've got to alter this system, so it just can't happen. And we can do that through the vehicles, the speeds, the road users themselves, and the roads and the road sites. There is another element that is often used within the SAFE system, not so much in Australia and New Zealand, but a lot in actually developing and middle income countries. It's another element or pillar of the SAFE system. I'll give a prize if anybody is able to tell me what they think that one is. So we've got the vehicles, we've got the speeds, we've got the road users, we've got the roads and the roadsides. Is there something else you can think of that might play a role in minimizing death and serious injury?
We had Christian very, very fast on the response there. Should I give it away?
Yeah, if it's right.
Post-crash response.
Yes, well done. There's a prize. That is excellent. So post-crash care or post-crash response is this extra element of the SAFE system. So when there is a crash, how do we, as quickly and effectively and efficiently treat injured parties? And interestingly, in a SAFE system assessment, again, I'm jumping forward, you actually do a little bit of analysis of that. You sort of say, okay, what if a crash was to happen here and somebody was injured? How long would it take emergency services to get here, and where would they go? Where would they take these injured parties? You know, we're in the middle of nowhere or up in a mountain, and oh my gosh, you know, they talk about a golden hour in trauma. Like if you can be there and treating people within this quick time, there are far better chance of not being killed or having lasting serious injuries. So it's part of the system. So you've given out a few prizes already, Kathy. This is good. So the key principles are there. I've popped them up on another slide there just so that they're very clear, and I won't give you too many hints about your quiz, but this is probably going to be some of the kind of things that might be in your quiz at the end, which, remember, you're marked on that one. Anything we ask during the session, you're not actually marked on. It's just the one after the session. But I want to do an analogy now. I want to do an analogy in a different industry. I want to step away from transport. And all of you are people who are in the transport field in one way or another. I've been having a look at what people are putting in Moodle, and you've got different backgrounds, and this is good. But let's jump completely out of the transport and let's look at widget production. So a factory, a manufacturing of widgets, and I'm going to go with widgets, right? So if we go way back in time, there was this point in time where the widget production was this fairly open system, right? And if we think about what the safety culture was in widget production in the factories of the time, it's what we would call a pathological safety culture. And we had these, big factory floors, and the machines were churning away, and it would be fairly open system. So people would come in, they'd say, all right, this, yep, you can work for whatever it is, £2 a day, and your job is to, take stuff out of that crate and put it into that machine and make sure it's full. Or, some kids, they go, oh, with cleaning of the machines and the like, well, okay, we'll get these kids because I can get them for, £1 a week, and they come in and they clean the machines. And what happens there is that they still say, hey, this is dangerous in there. That machine's dangerous. Don't put your hand in there, just push it and just make sure you stay clear. They say to the kids, don't, go in these areas and watch out for this because it's dangerous. And then you sort of pat them on the back and you say, be safe, and off you go. And of course, we see arms being ripped off. We see people crushed in machines. We see kids killed. And that's the pathological safety culture. But the manufacturing industry sort of evolved out of that, right? And got into this next phrase up, which was what we call the reactive safety culture. And it was that people were solving these issues as they popped up. The machine, it's ripped off 3 arms in the last month, right? Okay, well, maybe we can alter it. Maybe we can put a bit of guard there so people don't put their, maybe we give everybody a stick, right? So they push stuff in with a stick instead of pushing it in with their arm. And they start to come along and try to solve these issues as they arise. This is just reactive safety culture. Then we elevate up to what we call a calculating safety culture. And this is where we are trying to balance safety and widget production. And this is where the economists really, they shine. They love this safety culture because it's all about calculating what is the best dollar spent for safety output. And to do that, you have to put a dollar value on human life, right? You have to say, well, how much production are we getting? How much good do we get out of this kid? How much value to the economy do we get out of this kid? And okay, how much are we going to get out of them for the rest of their life? And how much taxes are they going to pay? How much good can they put into the community and the like? Let's put a dollar value on that. And then you go, right, okay, so I know how many people are being killed here, and I put a dollar value on each of their heads. And back in the time here, though, it wasn't even quite that refined about the benefit to society. It was really about the economists going into the managers of the factory or the owners of the factory and saying, hey, listen, you're actually spending a lot of downtime here because you've had machines out because of arms stuck in the machines. You've had to pay out to families because their kid got killed or their breadwinner got killed in the machine. It's actually costing you a decent amount of widgets, and you can produce more widgets if you got rid of this death and serious injury. And I've done this little calculation, and I've invented this thing called a benefit cost ratio. And if you were to invest £20,000, it would actually come out with £60,000 of increased widget production for you. And a benefit cost ratio of 3. For every pound you invest, you will get £3 back in return. And the owner goes, oh, good, very good, right? Let's invest in that. And this is what we call this calculating safety culture. But then when you evolve from that, right, you get into this proactive safety culture. This is where you say, we must obtain this very high level of safety. Very, very high level of safety. And that is what sets the preconditions for the amount of widgets you can produce, right? And that's kind of where our factories and our manufacturing have got to. But of course, you're putting this analogy to our road system now. The one that sits above this or in line with this is the maintenance of a high safety culture of proactive safety culture. You've got to continue to invest in that. Those two go hand in hand. It's a continual ongoing investment in your high level of safety. But if you look at our road system, where are we? Where are we? Well, I would say that we sit sort of like that. I've got a lot of pathological stuff out there. We pat drivers on the back, give them a license, say, hey, it's dangerous out there. You be safe. It's your safety is your responsibility. Good luck. We have reactive. We definitely will go and look for crash clusters, problem areas, and try to rectify those. We definitely are in the calculating space. Gee, does our industry love a benefit cost ratio? We love putting those dollar values and balancing and working these things out. But we do drift into proactive. Maybe we've got a bit more proactive these days, and that's continuing to grow. And that's the space we want to get further and further into. Some of the proactive things that I think of immediately for me are school speed zones. Now people will say, how's that? Well, if you do the calculations on school speed zones, which is the same way we do the calculations on other road investments, and I've done this, they are a horrible, horrible investment. There is not enough kids killed or seriously injured, right? It's not worth it. The little bit of increase in speed through all the school speed zones across Australia and New Zealand, and if you add that up to the value of increased productivity, if you say every human, every traveller is worth about $88 per hour, and that's you know, what we generally use as or somewhere around that, change situation, say $88 an hour, and you add up all the time savings every sort of 3 seconds or so through every school speed zone, and you add all of that up and all the vehicles have gone through there, and you go, wow, if we got rid of that, we get this little bit of increased productivity, and then you calculate the number of kids killed and how much we put the dollar value on their life and extend that out, and you go, wow, get rid of all those school speed zones. Our economy will be better. This is just like we can see how grotesque that is, how immoral that is. The protection of the kids is paramount, right? And so to a degree, we're accepting of this proactive safety culture in some situations. Now, kids are always just a fascinating one in road safety. They're a little sort of lever to get things to happen often, because people get very reluctant about things that are going to potentially kill or seriously injure kids, but they will throw away the calculating aspect in these sorts of things. Anyway, I won't go on about this too much more, but I think it's a good little parallel, because it also shows that we can evolve, we can step up here. You know, and you can talk about other industries, be it you know, this sort of stuff, or even other transport industries, aviation, rail, and their acceptance of death or serious injury and risk is just completely different to what we accept on the roads. And people will say, well, it's a different system, it's a closed system, and there's, you know, there's a specific driver, and then, you know, all of this sort of different stuff, and there's, you know, great ways to sort of look and analyze that. But the reality is that we can evolve these systems, and we have in many industries. We're just very slow at doing that through our road system in particular. Quiz time. Now, I remind you that you are not being marked on this quiz. This is just one to keep a bit of interaction going. The answers to some of them I have covered. The answers to one of them, the second one, you have not got yet, but I am going to talk about that next. So that one's just a real chance for you to have a guess at. But do please put your questions in, your comments. No need to particularly agree with what I'm saying. You can challenge it. I encourage that. We can have that discussion. But have a go at that quiz. It should have popped up on your screen. Now, jump in the chat if it has not popped up on your screen, or the Q&A, and let us know. Occasionally, a firewall or the like blocks the quiz coming up. So the two questions are: which of the following is not a key principle of the safe system? Aim for no mistakes on the road, aim for no death or serious injury, people are vulnerable, people make mistakes, shared responsibility. And at what speed did Usain Bolt, fastest human, cross the finish line in his world record 100-meter sprint? 24, 34, 44, 54, 64 kilometers per hour.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ken. I'll throw in a question just to get people warmed up with questions.
Yeah.
In the workplace, we're very familiar with, you know, occupational health and safety and the risk hierarchy.
Yep.
Why don't we apply that to the road network?
It is a wonderful question, Kathy. And
see, it's fun to challenge Ken. So get in on the action, people.
So we do. We aspire to do that. The hierarchy of control is pretty fundamentally sound way of managing risk, and it actually parallels the safe system very, very well. And if I do like, you know, if I'm trying to encapsulate the safe system philosophy in a very succinct way, so like an elevator pitch, for example, what I would say is that, hey, do you know anything about occupational health and safety, workplace safety? They're like, oh yeah, know a bit. And I say, okay, afford that level of safety to everybody traveling on the road network, and think about things in the same approach. And you're very close to what we would think of as a safe system. Again, it's a little bit fluffy and grey and, you know, philosophical. Most people are like, yeah, okay, but, you know, actually, how do you do that? But that in a general sense is the same principle. And the hierarchy of control is great. And you'll see actually that administrative controls, bottom of the hierarchy of control, same. Like, licensing, training of drivers and things like that. It's the bottom of the hierarchy of control. And it's really in the safe system, the thing we know is most efficient. And you get up to engineering controls and the like, and we're seeing we get a far greater benefit and success rate. I'll talk about that more shortly. Good, Kathy. Now, Kathy,
thank you.
If I run over time, you know who's to blame.
It's my fault. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. So I'm going to close off that poll. That's a nice way of saying stop asking questions. Okay,
no, good question. Right. Let's have a look at this. Which of the following is not a key principle of the safe system? Well, almost everybody there's got it, and we don't know who didn't get it, so don't worry, you're not losing marks. Aim for no mistakes on the road. Like, we completely understand that humans are going to continue to make mistakes. It's about managing and minimizing mistakes. Minimize and manage. That's what you should be thinking, right? We're not going to eliminate. The 100-meter sprint. So Usain Bolt. Oh, right. We've got quite a good group here. Either they're quick at Googling or they've worked this one out or heard it before. 44 kilometers per hour was the speed crossing the finish line. Usain Bolt. Why on earth would I ask that question in a safe system assessment? Well, what I like to do is give you this analogy, and some of you have heard this before. I do it quite. I use the analogy a lot, and others are using it as well. If we parked a car at the end of Usain Bolt's lane, and he came running down there at 44 kilometers per hour, bang, slams into that car, 44 kilometers per hour, will he survive? Well, the answer is yes, he probably will, right? If we planted a big tree, massive gum tree at the end of his lane, bang, slams into that, will he survive? Yes. He's likely to hurt himself, but most likely to recover, to lead a normal, healthy life. And in fact, what we know is that humans have evolved to withstand forces off the maximum running speed that they have. And it correlates quite well to the frailty of the human. So old people who are more frail cannot run at high speeds, nor can they withstand those forces from high speeds. Same with young people, right? It's quite a interesting correlation. It's one of the reasons people tell me that humans have an innate fear of heights, because we realize the speeds we will get to are beyond our ability to withstand that. But we don't understand that on the horizontal plane, because we've never got to, evolve with speeds like that. Maybe at some point, a long, long time into the future. Anyway, but we're designed to withstand your maximum running speed. So assignment 1 will be for you to run as fast as you can at a tree and just ensure that you survive. Of course not. But the idea being that we have limitations on our force that we can handle, and we need to start factoring this into our design and management of a system, because humans are going to make mistakes out there. They're going to be crashes. How do we manage the energy in those crashes? So, there's a little bit more science and data behind it, and there's a lot of emerging work going on in this space, which is the sort of fatality probability curves. And so I put these out there now because this is what Austroads is using. It's what most jurisdictions are still using. Some emerging sort of evidence which is altering these a bit, which is really exciting, because we want to keep analyzing and learning stuff. But for now, we're just going to stick to these. So this is a passenger vehicle striking a pedestrian. And down here, we have the collision speed, right? This is not speed limit, right? This is the actual speed of collision. And over here, we have fatality probability. the chance that that will result in death for the pedestrian. And this is for all of society, the frail, the Usain Bolts, the hulks of humans out there. And we see here around 10, 20, even 30 kilometers per hour. It's very likely to be survivable in that strike. Up here around 60, 70, 80 kilometers per hour, when that strike happens, it's highly likely that the pedestrian will be killed. And you can see around this 30 kilometer per hour mark is this exponential increase. It goes really, really bad really quickly with small increments of change when you're in around this area. Usain Bolt up there, hulk of a human. It's a bit higher up the ladder there in terms of his maximum running speed. But this is the kind of stuff we're able to survive. So hopefully I can get this to play. Hopefully that's streamed through for you. Now we can have a chuckle at that because we know, well, fairly confident he's going to survive that, recover. And in fact, he went on to win a gold medal a year later or something like that. So certainly recovered. They're the forces we can handle. We have this information for side impact. So we've got vehicle traveling this way, striking a vehicle here at a right angle. And what we do is we call this in our industry, we call that the bullet vehicle. So the one that does the damage, does the striking is the bullet vehicle. This is the target vehicle in this crash. And you'd usually, in a lot of crashes, you look at a bullet vehicle and a target vehicle. If it's vehicle to vehicle, obviously this one, the bullet vehicle, and then the target object is the pedestrian. Kind of odd term to say that they're what they were aiming at, but it's just the way we term it. Okay. So bullet vehicle speed we've got down here, bullet vehicle speed, and this is target vehicle chance of death. And it'll be driver side, passenger side, depending on the strike. And we see around the 30, 40, 50 kilometers per hour, it's really likely to be survivable. If you go up to 80, 90, 100 kilometers per hour, it's up there. It's likely to be death for the driver or passenger on that direct strike. And when we go to head-on crashes, we have the data for head-on. Both are bullet, both are target vehicles in this situation. And we see around the 50, 60, 70 kilometers per hour, highly likely to be survivable. And we're up here and we're seeing 100, 110, 120, highly likely to be killed, especially with direct strikes, offset strikes. And this is the speed of each vehicle, not the closing speed, right? But what we actually think about is the force on the individual occupant. So they go from, if we took 70 as the point where things exponentially start to go really bad, 70 kilometers an hour, it's a driver going from 70, they hit another vehicle of the same weight, same mass, traveling at the same speed, they go from 70 to 0. And it's that change in speed, the delta V. That's the thing that kills and seriously injures, the delta V, change in velocity over time. So the important thing here is to look at these particular speeds, 30, 50, and 70. I should delete my crazy scribblings. 30, 50, 70. 30 for pedestrians, 50 for right angle crashes, 70 for head-ons. And what we want to start thinking about is, are we able to get the speeds and the energies, if those crash types are able to occur, below what we call these threshold speeds? And the reason they are sort of chosen is this 10% fatality probability, but also that exponential increase. One of the things that people often sort of say is, well, hang on, why have we picked that? Like, you know, we've got all these vision 0 and aiming at 0 death and serious injury. Surely you're going to pick like the numbers where there's no chance. Well, I answer that in a few ways. One, that we're just looking at one element of the system here. We're just looking at the speeds, really, and crash types. So we've got all these other elements of the system we're working on. The second one is, I think that this is a journey and a starting point, and we've got to sort of move things along. We operate our system so far from these tolerable speeds at the moment. We need to start working our way through that. But, you know, in theory, that's right. There is also, I think, a little bit of an acknowledgement that the transport system is there to move people and goods around. So we could get a very safe system at 0. Like, if nobody travels and no goods move around the network, we have a very safe system, but it's not a transport system, that's for sure. Yeah. So anyway, that's where it is. And for now, and you know, I think we will evolve and alter these in the near future. But for now, we talk about the threshold speeds: 30 kilometers per hour for pedestrians, 50 kilometers per hour for right-angle crashes, 70 kilometers per hour for head-on crashes. Remember those speeds and those crash types. That's important stuff within a safe system assessment. To make your life a little bit easier, we came up with this. It's a very broad brush diagram, and it talks about different crash types: pedestrian being struck by heavy vehicles, cyclists being struck by heavy vehicles, motorcyclists, heavy vehicles, you know, side impact, right angle, heavy vehicle to car, car to car, head-on crashes, car. And we see there that we've got this sort of severity matrix at different speeds. And you'll see it's graded because it's not like you can just pinpoint it. But generally, you know, if the motorcyclist versus car, we know it starts getting really bad around the 50, 60, 80 kilometer. We know we're in some pretty serious strife for the motorcyclists. And you see that we've put numbers to these. Now, these numbers come into play in module 4, where we actually start scoring things in a safe system assessment. So you will be referring back to this to help you get some scores. But for now, you can just sort of think about it by, we're analysing now speeds, vulnerability of road users, crash types. We're putting it into this mix, and we're getting an understanding of where the most severe crashes are coming from, and what the death and serious injury probabilities are. General indication only, professional judgment required.
Love the disclaimer, Ken. Now, we have actually popped a hard copy of this and some other bits and pieces that will really help you with when you're doing your safe system assessment. So some of those key items are in your pack. Some questions have come through.
Great.
Would have thought that head-ons would be higher risk of fatality?
Yeah, so that is one of the findings out of what's his name, Sam Dukey's PhD work out of the Centre for Automotive Safety Research in Adelaide, which has been trying to get more refinement on these and the like. And his finding is the severity, yes, of head-ons is higher than we have previously predicted. The reason the initial research and work had head-ons as quite a good one was because the front of a passenger vehicle is very well engineered for a crash. We have crumple zones, airbags, seat belts, all coming into play in that crash. And a side impact really doesn't have that. We've got side curtain airbags, which are doing a little bit, not much. And yeah, it's not a great crash. There's a little bit of physics around it, and that's probably what whoever's said that is because you get actually a little bit of vector advantage out of a side impact, which was never accounted for properly, where you get a little bit of delta V wash, right? And so that's predominantly what I would say good research is starting to show. And so we're going to see some adjustments on these where I think head-ons will start to be more severe, and we'll adjust a few others. But for now, these are what all our guides are saying, based on the original work. So for now, we're going to sort of keep sticking to this, but keep an eye out for it.
Thanks, Ken. Just one more on that. Does the head-on crash curve not apply if the two vehicles are travelling at different speeds, or are you supposed to take the highest collision speed?
Yeah, so that's like the classic physics, aren't they? Where you got classic physics problem, you've got a truck and you've got a little vehicle and it's traveling at X speed, and this one's traveling at Y speed, and this has got a lower mass, and so this one comes in and then it goes back at a certain speed, and it's about that delta V, as I say. So the lucky thing we have is that a safe system assessment is a sort of level up from that, and in terms of you're making a call on the severity of predicted crashes, and you don't need to go into that precision detail in calculating your physics of alteration. So you generally would say, 70, 80, 100 kilometre per hour impact, and the severity is going to be within this general realm. But yes, it is dependent on the weight of the mass of the vehicles crashing, the speeds of the vehicles crashing, the difference in speeds of the vehicle, and then if you think about it from an individual occupant's perspective, what are they doing? How quick are they slowing down? Are they going from a constant speed of 100, and then they hit something, and then they go slow down over a period of time? Or are they hitting it and going directly backwards? Obviously much worse. So you can do that. You just dig out your year 10 physics textbooks if you want these problems and challenges. It's like real 101 physics stuff. Any more questions, Kat? That was a no. Okay. So there's this diagram that keeps appearing in road safety. Actually, Kathy, just making sure you can still hear me there, because I can't hear you. Oh, yeah,
sorry. No, all good. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I thought my internet might have dropped out on me. So there's this diagram that appears in road safety, and it's been appearing for a long time in road safety, and it is the bane of my existence. This makes me angry every time I see somebody put this up in a presentation, and not because it's wrong, right? It's because of the way it's used. And what it is this big crash causation study, right? And in fact, there's been so many of these crash causation studies done over time. And what it is they take 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 crashes on the road, and they go through this process of analysing the cause of that crash. Each one of them, and then they compile all of that. And what they come out with is this diagram that says drivers or road users, are 90% of the cause of crashes. And the classic one that everybody seems to use is 94%. That was one of the studies that was done on it, right? 94%. Humans are 94% of the cause of crashes. And roads play an overlapping role, and they present some, and in vehicles even less, of vehicle failure. Okay? I do not dispute this research, and in fact, it is quality research, right? But the natural reaction and is to say, well, we've got to target the biggest problem, don't we? The 94%. So we've got to start changing these humans. And then we get obsessed with this investment in like driver education and then trying to, train everybody up and the like, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's a bad thing to be doing, but it's the hardest of any element of our system to change and to get significant improvements out of. And it also lends us to a blame culture. And we've got to get rid of that, right? What we want to do is just talk about this as a system failure. Our system failed, and as a result of that, there was death or serious injury, and we need to alter that system. And this is really, like, I reckon this diagram has done so much damage around the world in terms of road safety. And it's just appeared, like when I'm doing work in other countries, especially developing or middle-income countries, and every presentation has this up as the first slide in an engineering road safety audit, road safety engineering workshop. And I'm like, they're basically saying, yeah, it's all a human's fault. We can, tweak around the edges here, but use, humans. And I'm like, wow, yeah, we've got to change this culture. Anyway. System. Now, this is an Ostrode's diagram, and I kind of disagree with their putting these sort of outer elements of driver excess and driver inexperience out of this. I put them right in the system. I mean, they're part of the system. Like, why have we let somebody drive? Like, why has our system let somebody drive 180 down the wrong way of the motorway? Like, why has not the vehicle intervened or the infrastructure intervened to stop this happening? Likewise, driver inexperience. Why are we letting somebody with absolutely no idea about the road rules or how to control the vehicle or anything like that actually out there into the system? But anyway, that's the diagram they use. But really, we need to start talking about system failures instead of, 4,000 crash causation studies to work out that humans are making mistakes. We know that now, and we don't dispute that. Change our system to minimize and manage those mistakes. Don't forget to count your wallies. And human error is a complicated beast. Road safety, people just have this vision of the ice addict driving their hotted up car at high speed, and that's what road trauma is. Like, that's our road safety issue. Not the case. I mean, there is that. That's an element of it. But road safety and error in our transport system comes in lots of forms. And some people far smarter than I will ever be have categorized these into slips, lapses, mistakes, unintentional violations, and then deliberate violations. Exactly how you define your categorization is interesting. But I mean, we can really draw a line there and say that everybody above that line are people overwhelmingly trying to do the right thing and stuffing up. And it costs, and then it can cost somebody or themselves their life or their health. Now, there's a big study that was done actually by the Centre for Automotive Safety Research out of the University of Adelaide in human error in the transport system. And what it discovered was that we really see for fatalities, we see about 40% down here in these, what they define as deliberate violators, and they're like intentionally doing highly reckless things out there. And if you do it down for serious injuries, acquired brain injuries and lasting debility, it's somewhere around 30%. So what we're seeing is somewhere around 70% of our high-end trauma are people generally trying to do the right thing and making mistakes for one reason or another. That's huge. This is also huge and needs to be addressed, but I think we just need to understand a bit about that. The media is just like they will make the public believe everything sits down here in terms of trauma, but it certainly doesn't. All right, let's do a little exercise, and I've got to hurry up like usual. But I'm going to give you a few minutes here to do this exercise, have a stretch, fill up your water or whatever it is. But all you're going to do is try to match a traditional approach to road safety to where we're trying to go with this safe system approach. And we're going to do this by putting a poll up on the screen, but you simply, oh, there goes the poll. So you basically say the traditional victim blaming and safe system we're trying to get to, and you can guess one of those things. And then you've got it there. So if you're not seeing that pop up on the screen, you can just pop into the chat some numbers. Remember, you're not marked on it, so just quickly move through, and it's a way to sort of consolidate some of that thinking in your mind. So I'll give you a minute or two on that. I'll give you a couple of minutes on that. Just move through it fairly quickly. Say some of these. I should say some of these could go to multiple ones. Again, I've taken this from an Austrode's bit of work. So there's, you can debate a few of these. So don't get too hung up on it, but just important to do this thinking. I'll give you another minute here, or give you another, no, I'm going to give you another 10 seconds. Hit those last buttons. Most of you have got something in. Thank you. Three, two, one. All right, end that poll, Kathy, please. Let's have a look here. Just have a little look through that. Oh, yeah, no, good job. We had a bit of consistency there and a little bit of variance. Let's actually do it on the screen rather than the sharing one. It's a bit easier to see on the screen. So stop sharing that. And let's see here. Okay, so as I say, some of these could go to multiple places. So we've gone from a victim blaming culture. We're trying to get rid of that blaming and say we understand that humans make errors as part of being human, and we're going to try to minimize the consequence. And we've got that shared responsibility, the system designers and the users. There used to be an emphasis on road user education and compliance. We're not getting rid of that. But we are now more looking at, can we create this forgiving system? A focus on crash reduction to this enhanced focus on consequence, especially severe injury minimization. So the crash reduction is sort of this, all crashes, but we recognize that, well, lots of mistakes happening. If we can minimize the severity of those, we're in a good spot. And 4 pillars actioned independently. This is a very interactive system, and we want to try to optimize it jointly, thinking about all of those elements or pillars of the system. And mobility, safety, balance. This is like that safety culture ladder that we presented. Well, we want to move into this safe mobility, maximize that safe mobility. Anyway, so there you go, just a little bit of consolidated. I think Ian Cameron sums it up pretty well. Ian Cameron's a Western Australian, and this was a sort of UN platform that it was presented. But we need a paradigm shift in road safety policy to stop the road death epidemic, and we need it now. It is unrealistic to expect that education and enforcement alone will bring the needed step change. Even road users who know and follow the road rules make mistakes. A safe system creates an environment in which simple mistakes will no longer kill people. No longer kill or seriously injure people. And that sums up things pretty well. The public will just say that road safety, just enforcement, education, training, that'll fix the problem. Tell you now, it will not fix the problem. Like a little bit of benefit, but it will not fix the problem. I want to do this as a quick little case study. Okay, Melbourne Highway in Victoria, central wire rope safety barrier system has just gone in, but it took like about 3 years for this project to be developed, and finally, all of the things that came in to stop it. Now it's in a narrow median there, flush narrow median. You can see it's a 2+1, so we've got 2 lanes in this direction, 1 lane in this direction, and And yeah, there's a little bit more of it here. You can see central barrier system, some outer barrier as well. Now, you know nothing about this project, I don't think, the development of this project. But as I say, there was like 3 years of just challenge after challenge after challenge. And this is with the first central barrier system in a narrow median that went into Victoria back in the day. So they were just hammered with challenges. I want you to just type in a few things that you think were part of those challenges and hurdles that the project team had to get over. Reasons why that people were saying you can't do this, right? You know, one thing or another, you can't do it. We don't want it for this reason or that reason. So just type in a few. I'm going to have a prize, not necessarily for the one that was the biggest issue, but for a couple that'll line up with a couple that I've got written down here for one reason or another. All right, I'm seeing a few come in. I'm seeing a lot come in. Wow. All right. It's like this group has tried to implement one of these projects in the past. There is a lot of good stuff coming in there. Well done, and great interaction from this group. Wow. Kathy, get the prizes ready, because a lot of people are. I had a couple written down here. Everything that's coming up were part of the challenges. So I'm just going to run through a few quickly here. We had cost, deflection of the wire rope system. That was one that I popped down there, and there's a reason why I popped it down there. So Vadim gets a prize there, and I think somebody else later on has the same one. So I'm going to give them a prize when I get to it. So that was an interesting one. Road width, yep. So there's not enough width, which played into that as well, and the shoulder. And over-dimensional vehicles and the like. Cost and effectiveness, absolutely. The dollars, you know, is this, there haven't been enough people killed here to warrant this, as you know, is it right? So Glenn also gets a prize on the width to fit that barrier system. So note that down. No overtaking in one direction, absolutely. Sean's got a good one there. You know, what if you're stuck behind the old granny going at 60 kilometers an hour and you can't overtake in one direction? The batters, the motorcyclists, yeah, absolutely. The motorcyclists were complaining about adding these dangerous things in the center of the road, in their opinion. Turners. So how do you turn and access? So Sean there gets a prize, because access was a big challenge. You know, can't really see it from this photo, but getting in and out of some properties and then you turning around. Archimore can have a prize there for the deflection as well. Banks on both sides, deflection of the rope. So that's a username, MLSALMO. So Kathy, you have to work out who that is. Maintenance, good one there as well. Yeah, absolutely. The maintenance team said, well, hang on, you know, this is going to get hit. And it's going to get, we have to be out there and maintain it. It's going to be a maintenance cost. And how do we even maintain the road surface in the area? Like, how do we get cars and trucks around us when we're trying to just do pothole maintenance and these sorts of things? So, you know, these sort of things came up. Not enough run out area, yet no clear area on the site. So this group has just, you know, almost, Kristen gets a prize as well there in the Q&A for their deflection one as well. So everything you're saying there were absolutely reasons why this could not go in, and it took so long. And the challenge we've got is that anything like this, which is a no-brainer in terms of safety. I mean, we've got vehicles traveling at 100 kilometers an hour, separated before this went in by a white line. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to leave their lane. They're going to head-on crash each other, for sure. And they would. And we can put something physical down the middle that stops that. Anytime we've got even these no-brainers in safety, we have a huge lot of reasons why we can't do something. Change is a hard thing for a lot of people. But what we need to do is elevate ourselves up and say, what is the actual benefit, going to be out of this? How do we respectfully work through all these concerns that people have? And the first ones are always the hardest, and then they get a bit easier after that. And you still got challenges, but you work through them. The deflection one on this one, which just blew my mind. And it's actually why I and a colleague got involved in this project. We weren't involved in a lot of the development in the early on part of it. But the wire rope system, deflects a little bit into that lane. That's probably I've over exaggerated it in that little. The deflection, the calculated deflection would go slightly into that lane. And people say you can't put it in, doesn't meet standards. And this was before we had back-to-back W-beam systems and other good ways to try to minimize deflection but still get good outcomes. And this was the right barrier system for the situation. I'm like, well, this is. So you're saying do not put anything there. That was the answer. No, just don't put anything. You can do a wide center line. Don't put anything there because you're going to deflect into the oncoming lane by this much. This just defied logic. Because obviously, that's, first of all, that's a test value at a 25-degree hit, which is a very quite a harsh hit. And also that, and we're assuming that vehicles run close to the center line all the time, and you'd have to time it. So don't get absolutely fixated on these standards and guidelines. And the beauty of a safe system assessment is it takes that logical, common sense look at something like this and puts a score to it. And really can say no barrier system or the barrier system that deflects potentially a little bit into the oncoming lane, which is going to be better. We don't need a lot of detailed investigation into that to know that one is going to be far better. But interestingly, this system, of course, got hit, and it's been hit, and the maintenance crews were beforehand saying you can't put it in; it's going to get hit. Of course, it's going to get hit. That's what it's there for. But anyway, there was a phone call after this incident to the region, and the phone call basically went, but I want to ring up and find out who put that barrier system in the middle of Melbourne Highway. And they got to the engineer who was sort of responsible for the project. And when you get that phone call from the public, if you work in a road authority, here we go, I'm going to get shouted out for something. But they actually just wanted to thank them, say thank you. That barrier system probably saved my life. Driving along, and a vehicle just came at us and then deflected and went along. Definitely would have head-on crashed us. And to me, that's a real demonstration of the safe system in action. The person had fallen asleep. They'd gone into where the other lane would have been, but the system just stepped in and changed it from a serious injury crash to a minor property damage crash. And that person was, the engineer was good enough to then refer it to the comms team and get details, and they filmed that. And we've put that into Moodle and on your memory stick. It's a little 2-minute video interviewing the people involved in this. And I think it's just a wonderful demonstration of the safe system in action, one way that it sort of plays out. And it is one way because we can intervene as a system in many different ways, be it the infrastructure, the vehicles, the speed, the road users. And I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with the Swiss cheese model, but basically the idea is, in order for an event to occur, a crash, it needs to find a hole in all these layers of Swiss cheese and get all the way through. So if we can minimize the hole, the number of holes, the size of the holes, or we can, put a non-Swiss cheese in there in one line, we don't get that. We don't get that crash occurring. And so if you can provide redundancy in your system, you're in a good position. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions. Kathy, I'm noting I've got half an hour left in this module.
Thanks, Ken. No questions at this stage. So yes, half an hour to go. You're doing well for time.
Want a bit of time to jump through a few things at the end as well. All right. So what I'm going to do now is just briefly touch on some of the other elements of the SAFE system, because next module, we're really going to hone in on the roads and roadsides, the infrastructure, which predominantly is what most people in this group are, is what their role is. So, but let's look at road users. And first thing I want to say is that the SAFE system is a system, and the road users and improved road use is absolutely part of the system. Some people get the impression that we're completely abandoning this in the SAFE system, and it could be some of the language I've used in the past, but I don't want, we can still get improvements in road safety from better road use. Absolutely. We need to continue to work. It's just, it is very hard. It's a long-term cultural change often, and there is some intrinsic humans being humans aspects that are so hard to alter. But you can get change, and we need to continue to work on that. The thing that is really important, though, is this is one element of our system. Do not believe that this is the be-all and end-all of road safety. But to get safer road users, we know some things that work, which is education, encouragement, enforcement, and the licensing systems you use, the entry into the system, how people can enter into the system. And we know that education works best, obviously, with the little humans. They are the most embracing of these ideas, and you can get set up a great, I suppose, safe operating system for life in these early stages. You can also feed that back into parents through the kids. So if you can instill a culture of seatbelt wearing that is very important, and these kids get into a car and somebody's not wearing a seatbelt, they will tell them to wear a seatbelt, because that's how they've been educated. And you can get some good gains from that sort of stuff. The young road users are our most dangerous, and there's some stuff we need to and we can do for those who are just learning to drive out there. And a few quick tips for that. First one is, do not send them on an advanced driver training course. They're far more likely to come out of that and get killed or seriously injured than before they went in. And the reason for that is that they become overconfident and they take more risks because they believe they can get out of dangerous situations. Now, when I say advanced driver training, I mean anything of high speed braking, high speed skidding, learning those maneuvers. There is sort of training available that improves road safety, but it's all done either on the public road network at normal speeds or in a classroom. There is no need to have these advanced braking techniques or getting out of skid techniques. This is like one of the world's best researched things in road safety, but people still absolutely believe if we can teach them to get out of these dangerous situations, we're going to solve road safety. And it's just not the case. We know that they take more risks. There might be a tiny little improvement in these very rare situations, but they put themselves in these situations far more often as a result of being on this course. So yeah, that's first one. Second one, just swap cars with the young driver. Like, the parents are always in these cars with 5-star ratings, the best safety features you can imagine. The P-plate driver or the young driver is in something where the brakes hardly work, and the risk profile is completely off. So that would be one. And the third one is just to get those hours on the road networks, and they build a picture of risk on the road network and how things operate, and that's how they can go safely. In an education sense, another one that's interesting with like the general public is, if you talk to people about their individual risk of being killed or seriously injured, they tend to switch off. So if you say, don't text and drive because you will be killed or you will be involved in a crash, they go, yeah, no, I don't believe you. And, sometimes it's, I don't believe you because I've been texting for the last 10 years and I'm going to be involved in the crash. Or, no, I only text when it's safe. I'm a good driver. It's all good. And the thing is that they're not actually wrong, because at an individual level, the risk of being involved in a crash is minuscule. Even if you're texting, just minuscule. But the thing is that we are talking about a societal issue, and it's the collective of all those minuscule risks. So what we have to do is say, okay, at a community level of all drivers, if everybody's texting, it's a really massive safety issue. But in an individual, it's not. And so what we're often doing is putting forward these collective risks and trying to target an individual on their behavior. And they just don't believe it. Same with speed limits, right? Putting reducing a speed limit from 180, and you go, well, no, we're doing this for your safety. And they're like, what are you on about? I've been driving this for 40 years. I've never had an incident. And they're kind of right, because it's not for their safety, it's for the whole community's safety and the collective risk. And so these types of ads, and this one's out of the TAC, which I think is a brilliant one, is saying, if you text and drive, your kids are going to text and drive. They're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to text and drive, at least not when the kid's in the car, because got to protect them and kids, and can't trust the kids. I mean, I'm a driver, I can text and drive, but this is what. So you've got to look for your other levers rather than individuals' safety, their kids, overall community safety. There's some research that shows that protection of wildlife is more effective than telling somebody that you're doing it for their protection. I just don't believe you. So what works? Okay, a whole of school approach and education throughout their whole of curriculum there. Education combined with other partner activities, be that infrastructure improvements, police, or the like, that holistic look at these things. Community education and support for community education is so important, because there are amazingly passionate community members about road safety who will invest their own time and their own money. And if we do not help them do that at an evidence-based perspective, it's just so sad to see. And I do see that a lot. I see kids, community groups like paying for advanced driver training courses for all of their youth in their community, and I'm like, what you are actually paying your hard-earned money, and their heart's in the right spot, but they're making things worse. Or they're taking their kids through the morgue or the trauma wards in the hospital. Say, if you don't drive safely, this is what's going to happen. There's good research out there to show that does not alter driver behavior. The actual only people it might alter driver behavior for are those who were the safest by a long way in the first place. Those who are going to be reckless or take more risks are not influenced by that. And it can traumatize kids in other ways. Just not a supported thing from the evidence base. And this is so important in road safety and everything we do. But we've got to be evidence-based, because everybody believes they're an expert in road safety. Every person who walks, or they feel what they feel from their personal experience, and they project that as to the way to solve this societal issue. And so we need to just be ensuring we've got evidence. And this comes back to you as an individual undertaking assessments or the like. Evidence-based, not personal opinion. Graduated licensing, so stepping people through the licensing process and restricting them heavily as they're new, and then easing that off. Very good, it works well. Education targeting especially motivated groups, the most motivated being parents, but there are others. And action programs to change the way road users use the network. I can talk about that a little bit more later. Things that don't work, I've said them, a lot of them already, but fear tactics don't tend to actually change behavior. Okay, they can set a wonderful platform for legislative change, for new enforcement, or whatever you're going to do. You show them the problem, you scare them, and then you put in a law. Okay, it's a pretty proven process. And in fact, people will often say some of those Victorians we've got, the TAC campaigns in the 90s, like shock and awe, very graphic stuff, scaring the hell out of people. Well, what you see with that is that you get behavioural change from the safest drivers anyway. You don't get behavioural change from the other end, the unsafest drivers. But what you do is the ability to then put in red light cameras, speed cameras, drink driving legislation. You can hammer it home, and you have community support generally because they have been scared by that, if that makes sense. Skill-based driver training doesn't work. One-off events don't tend to work. You need to coordinate that. Driver simulators or the like, there's nothing really to show any good evidence on that. I must admit, I haven't delved into that in a while. There could be some research or evidence around to show something. If anybody does know anything, send it through and I'll alter that. Membership in car racing club or go-karting clubs, not effective. And information only. Again, if you just tell people how many people have been killed on a road, at the start of that road, they don't drive any. Well, again, we don't see reductions in trauma as a result of that. I can't say that some people won't alter their driving, but we still see the crashes. Now, don't believe just what I'm saying here. What we've done is we've given you a fact sheet about all of this with the research listed on how I'm coming up with these statements. There's a lot of research around this. So you can have a look at that and have a look at the research and really get clear in your mind. But I try to distill it down. Now, Kathy, any questions pop up at this stage?
No, we're good at this stage, Ken. Thank you.
This is a diagram. Don't get too caught up in the details of it. But basically, learner drivers, those with a supervising driver next to them. And then, and these are crash numbers. And this was a study, a sample size study. As soon as they're out there on their own, the number of people killed and seriously injured skyrockets, and it goes down, and it goes down. Actually doesn't get to the same level. And this is both by pure numbers, but also per kilometre travel, or VKT, vehicle kilometre travel. So this is actually proof that skills are not the most important thing in road safety. These have no skills. These people, this is the first time they're driving on the road network, right? These people are highly skilled. Should be. But then these are higher risk. So it shows that. And it shows why we put restrictions in at these different points because of the risk levels. And different jurisdictions do this differently with, phone bans, drink driving bans, nighttime driving bans, number of passenger bans, these sorts of things. You're trying to regulate how that plays out. Encouragement is a really fascinating one in road safety, and I think it's underutilized. But incentivizing campaigns and programs are really, really good. Drive safely will pay you. It seems to work. And you do it, through different levers that you have to pull as a government. But the ones that have been analysed are zero. If you have 0 demerit points in your P-plate driving, you get a free full license. Seems to actually change behaviour and improve some driving and have some actual benefits. Advertising and marketing of specific behaviours are good. So trying to tell people, okay, take a break every 2 hours or take a 15-minute power nap or the like, rather than, don't drive when you're fatigued. Yeah, okay, well, give me some specifics here. It's really hard to measure and evaluate behavioural change initiatives. And I really do feel for that. I mean, I'm an infrastructure guy, and it's fairly easy to evaluate infrastructure. It's like, how's it go beforehand, whether, you do crashes or you do speeds or you do, conflict point analysis, whatever you do. And then how's it gone after you've built it? It's kind of easy. These ones are really hard. The evaluators often use recall. So, do people remember the messages? And then, do we believe that that has led to behavior change? Comedy's quite effective in recall, and especially with some of the major target audiences, young male. Young males and comedy seem to work really well as a resonating and recall. And you can, look to alter cultural through some of this. I've put some ads in your memory stick on Schoology, just 2-minute road safety ads, and I think that do a really wonderful job of getting messages out there. Very hard to evaluate if they're actually having meaningful road safety change, but they're pretty well recalled. But we do talk about this system change. We talk about, you'll see a lot more advertising now that is not shock and awe, but talks about other people make mistakes. So that's a reason to slow down. Again, not targeting, say, you're gonna stuff up, so slow down. No, other people are gonna stuff up. So everything needs to just be a bit slower. Talking to the community about human tolerance to physical force is a really tough one. The TA, like I use the Usain Bolt analogy, which you went through, but TAC came up with Graham. Graham is a life-size sculpture who looks scarily human, but is what you would need to look like to survive the forces on the road network, and done by a crash specialist out of Newark, and a trauma surgeon, and obviously the artist, and they've come up with this wonderful creature. And this is a long-term game by the TAC to try to get the message out there, especially to our young people. Why would you need to look like that to survive on the roads? And what can we change? And there was some work I've done with the TAC is to actually create, it's a year 11 module where they go in and they look at Graham and the like, but then they redesign a road so Graham becomes more like a human. So they lower speed limits, they raise pedestrian crossings, they're basically looking at forces out there. They put barrier systems on the high-speed road, and Graham becomes more human. And so there's this real trying to change a culture. It's a long-term game. Enforcement's good and it supports the system, but it's not the be all and end all. The police will be the first to tell you this. They say, we're just here supporting this system. Like there's got to, we're not the be all and end all. But we know a strategic enforcement effort is good at targeting your money and your resources at the right spots. There is specific deterrence, which is basically, I've been fined at this location before, I ain't speeding through here. And a general deterrence is the knowledge that you could be fined anywhere at any time, or for these things, and you try to get that general deterrence. That's general deterrence is why you do covert speed cameras. Specific deterrence is why you paint them red, yellow, and flag them. And I've been looking at speed camera locations in New South Wales this week, and my God, 20 signs on the approach and paint the thing yellow and put, that's saying just slow down in this area. But you do covert ones to get a general sense that you could be caught anywhere. Visual presence helps with the general deterrence, and we know that like a halo effect exists. So if somebody sees a police officer, they actually alter their driving behaviour for it's about 500 metres to a kilometre from where they see it. Speed cameras, as I say, work both covert and overt. Point-to-point speed cameras are a wonderful initiative. Our New South Wales friends, you're the only jurisdiction that only does point-to-point for heavy vehicles. Every other jurisdiction does it for all vehicles. And there's really crafty, I suppose, I would actually say elegant ways to do enforcements that aren't the blunt stick that we tend to go to. Alcohol interlocks, for me, elegant solution in enforcement, which is basically if you have a recidivist drink driver, like somebody who's been caught drink driving, or that we know that you put this device in their vehicle and they have to blow into it and prove they're 0, 0, and then they drive the vehicle. As opposed to taking their license off them, giving them a fine so big that they'll never be able to pay it. And you actually start to spiral people further out of control in their life, really. If you say, oh, drink driving, right, give me your license, taking your license off you, here's a $3,000 fine, and because you've been upping the fines and making it worse and worse, And then they can't get to work, they can't pick up the kids, they're just going to be behavior illegally anyway because they need to survive. Yeah, this one targets a specific risk and there's a more sort of socially conscious way of enforcing. And there's nothing to stop us doing this with speed. And I really hope we move into this space because drink driving's now got a general aura about it, which is generally unacceptable. And so people are accepting of this. The technology is absolutely there for us to do speed interlocks. So we can start with the people who we just can't, they're going to speed. We call them recidivist speeders. We could put a device in their car that either monitors them always and where they are and the speeds they're going in, which speed limit, or we could just make it so their car can't go over speed. It's easily done. And in fact, here's one that was in my Vic Roads vehicle 15 years ago, I reckon, pretty close to that was saying, you're in this speed zone, it would beep at me if I went over the speed. So technology is not the issue. It's our political will. It's probably a little bit the privacy lawyers who are having a field day of this, but anyway. I'll pause there, Kathy, for any quick questions. Bear in mind, I've only got 10 minutes to go.
Thanks, Ken. Do you know if there are any other countries that have the plate system, as in P plates and those sorts of things? I think instead of P plates, they should be red and green L plates, as then the driver is in no doubt that they are still in a learning phase. Sorry, this is a question from John. Sorry.
No, it's a good question. There are other jurisdictions have some similar schemes. Nobody has sort of refined as that the plates that we put up, but I do like that idea. Continual learning. Yeah, maybe we should all have them because we're all continuing to learn. But you just get nice different colours or something like that. Good point. Thank you.
And one more, all heavy vehicles have been speed limited for a number of years and the drivers adjust. We now have the technology to geofence cars.
Absolutely. Like, why on earth you could get into a car and drive at 200 kilometres an hour down, down the road out the front of your house? It's just, it boggles the mind. I mean, it's such a curly, wicked, like, politics and the biggest corporations in the world, and it's quite a wicked problem. I mean, there are some advances. Volvo's speed limited all their cars off the production line. Admittedly, they limited them to like 160 kilometers an hour, so it's pretty high, but it's a start. But yeah, like, why could we not start with these people? The high-end speeders are socially unacceptable, like people, So surely we could put some interlocks into their cars to start. Anyway, I gotta keep moving on. The vehicles are pretty amazing, but not as amazing as we maybe quite think. We know the ANCAP rating works really well. It's encouraging people to buy safer vehicles, and they're quite receptive to that. But even to get a 5-star rating on a crash like this, it's only 64 kilometers an hour that they crash that vehicle, frontal offset. You get 5 stars. So the dummy doesn't get an acquired brain injury, basically. Side impact's only 32 kilometers an hour. 5 stars. Pedestrian's 40 kilometers an hour, pedestrian crash. So what I'm trying to say out of that is the forces that we're subject to when crashes happen out there on the road, be it, running off the road, falling asleep, running off the road, hitting a tree, head-on crashing and the like. Even your 5-star vehicles are not equipped to survive those forces. Have you survived those forces without getting a death or a high-end serious injury? So we've got a long way to go. But is there, a point where we're all out of a job because the cars and the trucks are driving themselves and we don't need to worry about this? Well, probably in the future. It won't be in my lifetime, I don't think. But it will sort of evolve into it. And we know there's levels of autonomy. There's 5 levels of autonomy. This would be sort of level 4 or 5. Level 4 if it was restricted to some particular roads, level 5 if it's completely go everywhere. Now, it is so far away and it's so complex for us to get to this end. We know that humans are 94% of the causation, so you'd eliminate a lot of that, but we're talking 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years or whatever it is for us to eventually have the whole fleet like this and not have driving as a task. Most people like driving, some people like driving, and there's other things that happen. Anyway, the point being that we can't just sit back and let the vehicles try to fix this. We've got to think all elements of the system. In a safe system assessment, you do some interesting analysis depending on the depth you're doing it. You can do things, we call it roads that cars can read. So thinking about the technology of now and of the future, and how will the infrastructure perform with the vehicles of the future? Can those cars read it? Can they communicate? Do they understand what's going on? Are there any new risks created? Interesting little space to get into. We know that, as I say, this is just your auto emergency braking, so vehicles braking by themselves. And so we're going to get benefit out of that sort of stuff. We know that sometimes the crash will be at a lower speed, like this one that took a leg off. So it did brake and it hit a lower speed. And this is a success. This is a win. Well, obviously we wouldn't want it to hit the pedestrian, but we're slowing the speed and lessening the energy of crash as well. And the speeds are so important. Speed is the combination of, so the impact speed is reaction time. This is for vehicles, reaction time, and then the braking distance. Okay, and the one here is that at 60 kilometers an hour, 45 meters, you just touch an object, right? But if you take this up just 10 kilometers to 70, 10 kilometers extra travel speed, you hit it at 46, right? Now you'd think, well, you hit it at 10. No, it's not a linear relationship. Speed and crashes, we know, again, not a linear relationship. In fact, it's a power relationship. It's a fourth power relationship for fatalities. And it's a third power relationship for serious injuries, which basically means that, small increases in speed have much bigger increases in your chance of fatality or serious injury. Other injury comes in at a second power relationship. But if you're not somebody who sort of plays with power relationships and understands that, the basic answer here is small changes are most impactful on the higher end severity crashes. And it's not sort of, if you can get a small reduction in speed, you can actually get quite a big reduction in your fatal serious injury crashes. The community response to speed, amazing. And you're all probably been in this. The community generally doesn't think speed limits, well, a lot of the community don't think speed limits will reduce crashes or reduce trauma. There's some research here, and I'm not going to go through it in detail. Most of the community understands basic physics, that if you lower speeds, you're going to lower severity. Actually, I shouldn't say that, because this does the current speed limits. There's a difference between speed limits and speed, obviously. Reduce severity. There's more support for that, but you can have a look at that in your own time. But you can achieve a safe system, no matter what, by just filtering everything through a speed of travel. We talked about that earlier, that we need to operate a transport network, so we've got to be cognizant of speed. And I've just put that into an Austra's Guide to Speed Management. Safe speeds can be achieved through infrastructure and/or speed limits. So don't just think it's a speed limit thing. And infrastructure is a good one. Explaining why it's in place is actually proves to be quite effective in acceptance and compliance. And generally, vulnerable road users are better accepted as a reason to slow down. Okay, in my last couple of minutes, I'm just going to cover this off. Risk traditionally is likelihood times consequence. In a safe system assessment, we make likelihood exposure, likelihood, and then the consequence. So how many people are exposed to a crash type? then what's the chance that crash is going to occur? And then how bad is it going to be when it does happen? Exposure we can alter through things like closing roads off, closing intersections, closing level crossings, or separating road users. So separating them from the cars so they can't crash. The likelihood is all the things that make it less likely that you're going to crash. Audio tactile center line, wide center line, shoulders, cleared areas on the side, good surface. Traffic signals make it less likely that you're going to crash. The severity, though, is about the speeds, the angles, and the vulnerability of anybody involved. Slowing vehicles through an intersection would reduce the severity. Providing a barrier so they hit the barrier and they slide along it rather than hitting a tree or another vehicle reduces the severity. And so what we're going to do in the next session is delve into that exposure, likelihood, and severity at an infrastructure perspective. I rushed a little bit at the end, and it's okay because we're going to start with that again and we're going to repeat that. If you log in a little bit early on Friday, we're going to do just a bit of general trivia, random trivia questions Kathy's going to ask, and you're a chance to win a prize if you log in a little bit early. So any final questions in our last 10 seconds?
No, but I'm just going to quickly show people that if you haven't already, there's an email from Safe System Solutions. So it looks like this, and it'll say that you've got an account created for you, your login name, which is your email and a password. And you click on the link there and that'll jump you into Moodle, which looks like this. And so you're in the Safe System Assessment May course in there. And then what you're looking for is module 1. There's the presentation. There's the videos that Ken went through in the session, and there's the quiz there. This is also where I'll put this recording within the next sort of couple of hours. Just takes a little bit of time to download and that sort of thing. So that's where that recording will be found. So jump in and do the module 1 quiz. No strict due date on that one, but ideally just after this session and before the next one, but you do need to complete it all before the end of the series. And sorry, we have gone a minute over time, so I will wrap things up there. Thank you, Ken. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on Friday.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, everyone.